The housing market is slowing down. There is a market correction that is unquestionable at this time. Would you agree?
That's what the evidence is showing us now. Certainly, sales have slowed. In some sectors of the markets, prices have begun to come down. I would say, almost counterintuitively, rezoning applications are actually up. So there's a preparation, at least, for a resurgence or restabilization of the market.
Well, certainly have been hearing from the development community that there is uncertainty.
Yes, no question.
The period that we've looked at in the study is the last 10 years, which is since 2008 and the crash. And we have seen unprecedented growth over this 10 years in the number of housing starts. As you know, in 2016 in particular, we saw double the number of housing starts in a single year than the median average over 20 years. Mm-hmm. You'd agree?
Yeah, it's been a very robust period, particularly since 2014, 2015 until now.
And the vast majority of that was strata condos.
Yes, we've been able to produce a significant amount of rental, but not nearly at the needed rate. So the majority has been strata.
And a large amount of that strata development was at the expense of affordable existing rental buildings.
In some cases, they were ground up, or some cases they were replacing existing rental buildings. So it's been a.
So there was displacement of existing affordable rental housing at the benefit of condo development. I point that out because there is a significant shift going on. The timeline and assumptions of what has been presented today, I would consider quite aggressive.
Okay,
given these changes. And my point is, thank you, Chair, I'm talking to Mr. Kelley.
No, this is question time. You cannot talk. You can ask questions, please. Thank you.
There's such a thing as prefacing remarks. And I'm questioning, given the aggressive timeline here, how is that going to align with the recently approved citywide plan?
Yeah, there were a number of aspects in answer to the previous question around infill development in lower density neighborhoods that need really to dovetail into that effort to explore that. I think there are elements of this current study between now and November where we'd like to come back and say for existing defined policy areas, the corridors and so forth, station areas, what more could we do or do we need to do to incent rental development?
My understanding was that in large part the intent of the citywide plan was to determine what the people, the residents of the city want across their neighborhoods, yeah. Recognizing that there is no one-size-fits-all model. How do you see that aligning with what we've seen here today?
Yeah, I think we will be testing alongside people's desires. We've heard throughout our engagement so far over the last several years that the need for rental housing and affordable rental is very high on the community's list of desired outcomes. And so this is following along that path, but we will continue to test and retest during the city plan, particularly how that should land in neighborhoods throughout the city.
I've previously taken exception with the underlying assumptions underlying the Housing Vancouver, in particular the aggressive targets of 72,000 units over the 10 years between 2017 and 2027. Will you also be revisiting those targets based on what we're seeing in population growth, especially as we know that we're anticipating the next round of census in 2021?
Yeah, the census in 2021 will come a bit late in the city planning process, but it will serve as a good checkpoint toward the end of that process on the assumptions and the policies that will then not yet have been adopted by council. I think the other thing to note is that the purpose for the rather ambitious number in Housing Vancouver was to balance the supply, because much of what we had to balance was the 30,000 or so strata that were already in the pipeline with incentives for new rental. If the market is slowing for strata, the 70,000, 2,000 could actually drop and be the proportion of rental could be greater than we might otherwise have seen without the Housing Vancouver strategy.
Well, I totally agree that
Sorry, that's your
the
time,
slowing of
Councillor
pre-sales
Hardwick.
may have a
That's your
positive
time,
effect.
Councillor Hardwick. I'm sorry. Thank you.